Welcome to the Global NEXUS Network. My name is Prince, and today we are going to be having a very interesting conversation. I'm not here alone. I'm going to be having this conversation with my friend.
Yeah, my name is Alex.
All right. And we're going to be talking about corruption, how the current government has been handling the whole situation. In our part of the world, corruption is a very major conversation whenever we discuss progress, whenever we discuss the future of this country and this continent as a whole. And if you have been paying attention, the current government has decided to take steps. Certain people have been arrested, certain court cases have been, sent to the judiciary to handle. And we're going to be talking about how the general public has been perceiving these proceedings and these developments. So Alex, generally, how do you see the few months so far in terms of the government's approach to the whole corruption debate?
Okay, so if you actually look at for the past about 5 years,
Yeah.
you could see that perception of corruption has risen, has
Yeah.
become very huge in the country, and some people even argue that that alone fed into the tension we had in the just ended election.
Mm-hmm.
So far, the current government's approach to corruption, I would rate the current government's approach to corruption, the fight against corruption, I would rate him average. Because of few
Average?
things. Yes, I would rate the current government's attempt in dealing with the corruption average due to one or two things I've identified within the fight. But being average, the government is still young, and being average, I don't think it's. But that is what I would say about the government's handling of the perceived and also the unraveled corruption we've had so far.
Well, what is it about the way they are handling things that you think is average?
Okay, so if you actually follow corruption in Ghana here,
Sure.
and major people who have been put in place to help fight in the lives of former Auditor General, he made a bold statement that if you fight corruption, corruption will fight you back.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually every issues of corruption has to do with high profile people, because
Yeah.
if you don't have the guts, you can't even think about it.
Yes.
That is why I 100% agree with former Auditor General when he said that corruption usually fight back.
Yeah.
So in that sense, having that in mind, that corruption always has to do with high profile people very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
In few cases, it can also has to do with people with very limited power, and even with that, it attracts its own criticism.
Yeah.
So, in this very approach of fighting corruption, corrupt cases that has to do with past governments.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that this government is leaving behind is being transparent enough and also playing by the rules of the game. If you fail to adhere to these two things, what happens is that all your actions also feed into the conspiracy theories that attempt to defend people who have been caught or people who have been accused of corruption.
Well,
So
one thing thing that people normally say is that whenever in our part of the world, people would say that the current government, they've already been in power before,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
They did their 4 years, they were voted out,
Exactly.
and then the past government, the most recent government, spent 8 years,
Yeah.
and then now the current government has come back, right? Some people believe that this current government was also involved in, or at least people within that administration did a lot of things that were perceived by the general public to be
Okay.
corrupt, and that's why they were voted out.
Okay.
And so they are not likely to be going after the big people,
Okay.
right? They are going to go after the underdogs. They are going to go after the people at the grassroots, or the lower tier people, and not go for the big people, because it's likely to also open certain doors that may not be able to close. So do you think that is a fair criticism about them?
In its own, if this absorption would never be a fair idea or a fair approach.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said earlier on, that immediately you open up corrupt case,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter whoever, there's a way. Just like you said, that if it is the small fish or the small catch,
Yeah.
people are gonna be like, what happened to the big ones? What happened to the big cases, or the big people, the high profile ones who actually took the decision and perhaps implicated these people?
Yeah.
Likewise, if you go after the big fish too, it will also come with its own issue of they having the power to fight back. So if we are actually being transparent enough, just like I said earlier on, let's say, for example, corrupt cases like let's say the NSS issue that we are dealing with right now. If the government take it upon itself that this we are handling it, everybody knows we are handling it, and we are going to take the chance to inform the public at every stage of the process, people would have easily access to information. And in an issue of this nature, it has a diverse way of fighting back. And a most common way is also having subject to these people also coming up with misinformation. It could be on YouTube, Facebook, anyway, trying to actually stir the public that the government is doing something illegally against. I just voted out the government.
Yeah.
So if people are well informed about every stage of the process, okay. So we just recently we heard one of them has been detained.
Yeah.
And we even have a high-profile lawyer on public TV, on TV station, saying that the person may have been kept beyond 24 hours, which is against the law.
Yeah. And
this alone, if let's say these people have subjects on YouTube and other places that are also defending them, they could easily generate conspiracy theories or conspiracy issues. And it's actually going to be something Israel is going to fight back. So if the government is able to actually give the public timely information on where we are now and what is the next forward, at least it gives two sides of a story. And perhaps just like you said, that knowledge and thinking has moved forward. There will be enough people who will be able to think that if you have two-sided story, and perhaps people will be able to analyze and know that, oh yeah, this is believable, this is not believable, this is okay, this is not okay. But if you are silent and you leave the whole conversation to whoever is interested should fight to look for, whoever is interested to seek for, those who are fighting back or those who may want to engage in painting the government in a bad way would not say that come and look for it. They would rather give to the people. You get it? So
what do you have to say? Difficult. What do you have to say about people or about the argument that going after individuals is not the way to attack corruption? Because yes, it is important to go after individuals in the short term, but it almost seems like that has always been the approach. You go after the individuals instead of fixing the system that creates corrupt individuals.
Okay.
What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so going after individuals may not be the best way to fix it. But what I would say is that it cannot be eliminated, because fixing the system is a very important step. But we are the same people who will fix the system. And you know how things were when it comes to human thinking. Definitely, if it is humans that puts those measures in place, it's humans who would find a way to break it. Yeah, definitely there's going to be loopholes. So fixing the system, I completely agree with it. But going after the individual can never be eliminated. Definitely there's going to be a slip.
Yes,
such a person.
The going after the individuals, like I said, it's important, right?
Yeah,
because if you're going to try the system, you're also going to have to look at certain people who have always stood in favor of corrupt activities. There are some people who are very, very keen on maintaining this system that keeps producing the same types of results that Ghanaians are unhappy with. But if we are supposed to project into the future and say we want a Ghana in the next 25 years to be 50% less corrupt or 90% less corrupt, because obviously corruption is one of those things that you don't want to admit that is how it is, but it's one of those things that may never be completely done with in any country at all, because it's a symptom of poor human behavior, but at least we can say that we want to gauge and say certain types of corruption should end, especially in certain areas. We can at least improve on the level of corruption that is going on. Do you think that what do you think about the long-term planning? Do you think that is something that the government should also be looking at? Because we don't hear about that most of the time. When they talk about corruption, they talk about corruption now, corruption in the last 5 years, corruption in the last government, the last 4 years of the previous government or administration. What do you think about the conversation that every serious government should also be thinking about? How to draw up a plan, how to set up systems, how to bring in technologies, right? So that everything is recorded. There is a data to prove who touched this, who transferred this to this place, so that at least for the next 10, 15 years, Ghanaians can see that certain things have slowly changed and improved over time.
Okay, so in the long run, personally, because I've lived in Ghana, and then I've also been following corruption issues, and also what's usually provides the fertile land for some of these corrupt cases to thrive. Because I've been following, the first thing that I'll mention that in the long run, if you indeed we are a serious country and you want to fight corruption, the first thing I'll talk about is the need to amend the 1992 Constitution. Because if I actually look at the Constitution and the power it gives some people and the way it was drafted, you could clearly see that it forces people to be political than being national.
And then
that is very true. Because of the nature of the Constitution, people are quick to defend their political stance.
Yes.
Rather than, so the Constitution itself takes away the country first sentiment from the people.
Yeah.
So if this Constitution should remain, personally, I believe that the time will come that we wouldn't have a nation, or maybe a people that believe in a nation.
Yeah.
We will only going to have a growing people that believe in political ideologies, political stance. And that is what we are always going to defend. So in the long run, I would say that we would seriously need to do something to our 1992 Constitution.
It is true.
And implement more measures that creates the check and balance that we all want to see. From appointment to what the executive can do and cannot do. And also other regulations. Secondly, one thing that was also missing, that me personally I believe that is missing across the African continent, is doing things in good faith. What do I mean by saying doing things in good faith? If you actually look at how contracts and how projects are done in Africa, usually if you are doing something in good faith, what you do is that you are doing the thing because it's the best that people need at a particular point in time, or at the time that the thing is being done. But if you actually look at, even not here, only here in Ghana, if you actually look at follow projects all over, even West Africa, let me tell you a little. You actually realize that before a project will be decided on, the first thing that's going into is that who will take the credit for the execution of that particular project. The next thing is the money and the cuts that will go into some people's pocket.
Yeah.
We may actually argue that we don't have proof of these cuts.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at some of the projects and the promises that come seen, and then why people close their eyes to do certain things, you could see that this is not being done in good faith. This is not a project that it is done because the people need it, but it is being done because of a particular interest of whoever is in power, or whoever is actually. A typical example is definitely going to be this natural cathedral project that there was no value for money, and it should tell you on which interest was this whole thing started. Was on interest to please God or to please the people or that. It's also open for another debate. So doing things in good faith is also something that in the future, if we can really fight our leaders or whoever become leader, it could be any of us here become leader, you always think about that. The best way to fight, or the best way to fight corruption, is that make people understand that we do things in good faith. We are doing this because it's what is needed at this particular point in time, and not to please myself or to make some financial gain for myself. So these two things I believe strongly that is going to help Ghana. The third one I also want to talk about is that every time that you want to fight corruption, let's play by the rules and be transparent enough. The least transparent you become, the more conspiracy theories will be developed against you. And I don't want to say the false, but conspiracy theories travel very fast.
Yeah.
Because it's very juicy, it's catchy.
Yeah.
And it is usually crafted. And if it is crafted to fight you, it becomes very difficult to actually win against conspiracy theory, because it's going to play on people's emotions. People will be freeze from thinking because it hits you and your thinking is swayed. That's how it works. Before a different set of information will reach you for you to believe that these were things that were crafted to deceive me, the damage may have been caused already. So these are the three things that I strongly believe that in the future it can really help us deal with the issue of corruption. Okay,
so a little something before we conclude today's episode. The very nature of politics, and power. In this context, there isn't a lot of oversight. There isn't a lot of people overseeing some of the actions of politicians. It almost seems as if the politicians themselves are the same people checking themselves.
Exactly.
And that always, breeds the conversation of conflict of interest. who is supposed to hold themselves accountable if they have no one to put them in their place, and if the system itself is not tried. I believe that Ghanaians know this, that it's going to be very difficult for us to progress as a nation. We can't just always expect the individuals to do the right thing. We should also, hold our leaders accountable with our vote. I believe Ghanaians feel that they did that in the past election, but that should not be the only time. Every single time we feel that something is not going well, we should always stand up, speak up. If we have to protest, we protest. It is a very good thing you brought up the National Cathedral issue, because that is one of the things that I feel clearly every Ghanaian on a very personal level feels, even if you are not going to call it corrupt. That at least there was very little done and a lot of hype about the whole project, and very little was done, and that was one of the instances that left a very bitter taste in Ghanaians' mouths. Thank you very much for watching this episode. We are the Global NEXUS Network. Thank you for your time. Please go in the comment section, tell us about how you feel about Ghanaians' attitude towards the way this government is handling the corruption that they feel was happening in the past administration. Do you think there's something we should do about it? Do you think that the long-term approach should be coupled with a short-term approach of going after individuals? What do you think about the 1992 Constitution? Should it be reviewed? Should amendments be made? Do you think it gives too much power to the government? Say all this, let us know. We will come in the comment section. We will respond to some of them if you leave an interesting enough comment, and we hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you.